because this is recorded, we can edit afterwards. If there's anything that you would like to edit, you could just tell me and then we can edit. Okay. Hello, my name is James Kelly, and I've got the great pleasure of inviting the Reverend Reja Joy and Todd Whitmore to be on this Course in Miracles conference. Hello.
Morning, James.
Yeah, good to have you here, and thank you for joining. And I know you're both students and teachers of A Course in Miracles and speakers, and you're also two of the co-founders of the Course in Miracles Society, which produced the original edition. And maybe a good way to start off is to even answer the question, what is the original edition?
Go ahead.
Oh, he deferred. What a guy. Well, the original edition, this gentleman is the reason that we have the original edition, and it's an amazing story. But Tom was made aware of this manuscript, and it came as an email. Do you want to tell that?
Well, I can.
Yeah.
I can tell the email. It's late 1999, December 1999, and there was this conflict going on in the Course in Miracles world involving copyright and trademark and that kind of thing. And among the unintended consequences of that was this earlier manuscript surfaced, and someone emailed it. An electronic copy of it to me. This had been transcribed into digital content. And I saw that I had this big attachment on an email. And I thought, oh yeah, I already have an electronic copy of A Course in Miracles. Because in my mind, there was one Course in Miracles, and it was the familiar blue book, which I'd been studying for some 10 years at that time. Mm-hmm. And it was 2 or 3 weeks later, this person who emailed it to me called me, or we were talking on the phone somehow, and she said, so what did you think of it? And I told her what I just said. I already had an electronic copy, so I didn't really get into it much. She said, well, get into it a little bit. And I got into it and I started reading it, and I saw immediately how different it was from what I was familiar with. And that's how it all started, is we kind of passed that around among ourselves and started exchanging parts of it with each other. And that got to be very difficult, very unmanageable. So we said, let's print this thing. And so we did. And that was, we called that Jesus Course in Miracles to distinguish it. And there's a story around how that was funded that Joy can probably tell you about.
Absolutely, it was a real miracle, and it's something like the miracle that happened when the Foundation for Inner Peace wanted to print their book, and they had a miracle. Someone showed up with some funds unexpectedly. Well, that's what happened with us. We had it all done, all formatted, ready to go, and we attend Unity. And I said to somebody at one of the social get together before service, well, we're all ready to go, but we just need it sounds familiar, right? We're all ready to go, but we just need the funds to print it. And this person said, how much do you need? And I told him, and he said, you'll have it in the morning. And it was an amazing miracle, because we did not have the funds, and now we could print. So it was wonderful.
Wow.
So that was it. We printed, I think, 1,500 copies, and immediately sent out 500, to people who were interested in it, waiting for it. And then we had to stop because we were hit with an injunction.
Okay.
So I don't want to get into all that copyright litigation. I mean, it was a tangle, and everyone came out fine in the end, and we're great friends with the Foundation for Inner Peace now, and there are no conflicts between us. And so it all ended well, but that was a time of some turmoil.
But actually, we formed the Course in Miracles Society. Tom incorporated it as a nonprofit, and there were 6 people as members at that time. So there were 6 founding members of A Course in Miracles Society. And we incorporated before we printed, then we printed, then we had to stop, and we just marked time for a few years, just waiting for Spirit to work its wonders. And when the copyright was overturned, we could continue on.
Yeah. So go ahead.
But actually, that I don't know if that answers what the original edition is. And the thing is, this manuscript, when it was found, it was discovered in the library, the Edgar Cayce Foundation Library, the ARE Library. When it was found, discovered, and when Tom read it, and when all of us read it, we were aghast because it is so different. It is 25% of the first 5 chapters was there and had previously been removed, and we were material we had never read. And then so it actually turned out that this manuscript was what was finished by Bill and Helen. They had completed, as far as they were concerned, it was done. It wasn't a working copy, it was finished, and they gave a copy to Edgar Cayce's son, looking for a publisher. They had worked closely with Jesus, Helen and Bill, and specifically Bill, because Jesus said, you will decide what to change, what to keep in, and he made all the decisions, very proud. He put a lot of time and effort into it. And then they were done. And so this original edition, I feel as though it honors Bill and Helen and their efforts at completing the course before further editing took place. So that's basically, essentially, what this original edition is.
Yeah, it's wonderful for me to just think of, Helen and Bill together. Their purpose was, as you say, to do editing afterwards, after they got it all down. And that was part of their special function, I guess, given to them. And I can just feel that energy of the two of them working together. And as you say, they were complete with their editing when they got to this manuscript itself.
Yep. And another thing is that Bill, when it was decided that there was going to be further editing, he did not agree with that, and he really moved. He moved from New York to California. He did not want to be part of that, and that says a lot to me, because I feel very close to Bill even now. I mean, after reading Carol Howe's book about Bill, I feel very close to Bill, and so that spoke volumes to me.
Yeah, I think that's really important for people who are new to the course, just to realize a little bit about the history and the relationship that Bill and Helen had, and what the result of that was, which is this manuscript.
Excuse me. I kind of see Bill as Helen's muse in a way. I mean, he encouraged her from the very beginning. She was afraid of this material. She resisted the process, and he encouraged her. Well, bring it in. Come on, let's look at it together. And if it's not worth anything, we can discard it. But just bring it in. Let's sit down. And so he just kind of encouraged her step by step through this process, which she resisted. So I think that's kind of the magic that made it happen, is that relationship between the two. And I think without Bill, Helen wasn't as effective, and without Helen, certainly Bill couldn't have had an impact on this, because he wasn't the one bringing it through. But together, they created this wondrous document.
Yeah, as you say, most people think of the Helen being the scribe, and they don't really know the significance of Bill had in really the editing and presenting what they saw as A Course in Miracles.
Yeah. And not only in the support he gave in the presenting and the scribing, but it was his relationship with Helen, because there are parts of the course that they kept in, because Jesus said to Bill, now, if the if this material is personal and others can benefit from it, leave it in. But if it's very, very personal, like the taxi, and no, they can't benefit, take it out. So there are parts of the course that are in the original that are very specific to their relationship. You can tell, but it benefits all of us because it was their relationship in the ongoing relationship as this course came through that helped them to learn the course. And so that part is in the original, but it is not in subsequent edition. Important.
Well, yeah, that's one of the important shifts from the 1972 manuscript to the 1975 Blue Book. Is in those middle chapters, 18 to 22. In the 1972 manuscript, that's speaking to two people in a relationship, in a holy relationship, and it's adjusted in the later edition to speaking instead of Jesus speaking to two people, he's speaking to one, the reader. And it really loses a lot when that happens.
Because I think there's some tendency in some Course in Miracles students to think about the holy relationship being this, kind of not really between two people. It's kind of like you can't really have it between two people, but it's going to be between me and Spirit or me and Jesus. But somehow it takes it away from, the personal relationship.
Yeah.
That's another thing that parts of the Course, he says man, he uses the word man, and that somehow changed out. And then I totally agree about that idea of that it's just you. No, it is you and your brother, not just you and Holy Spirit, like you said. So.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, because as you say, the Course in Miracles is all about relationships, and it started off with a very particular one where Jesus was talking to those two people. And as you say, in the original edition, the manuscript, what were you saying? The 72?
72.
72 is got those words. The you is referring to Bill and Helen specifically. Was that right?
Yes. Exactly.
There's other psychological concepts like dissociation and things like that were kept in by Bill. He even mentioned, I believe, Freud, and it's okay to mention Freud and even Edgar Casey, so it's like, we're just, like we said, we're honoring what Bill had decided to keep in.
Yeah, and you were saying about, or before we started this interview, you mentioned the word soul is an important word, and it's in the original edition, but I don't think the word soul is in the, for example, the Foundation for Inner Peace edition, which we talked about at the start as being that blue book that most people are familiar with. It is probably not made it into that edition.
Well, actually, it's there. It's there about, I don't know, something like 12 times.
Oh, it has. Okay. Yeah.
Down from 127. So, but the thing is, it's there, but sometimes they change the word soul to something else, to spirit, or they change also the word, the two words spiritual eye changed to other words. But soul was, it's in there, but it was.
It's still there, but it's much less.
Yeah, the word soul is used in a way that's not familiar with many course students. In the original edition, it means what you might say individuality. If you're familiar with the Course of Love, for example, especially back in the dialogues, it talks a lot about individuated beings. And that's what soul means in the original edition. It's that concept of an individuated being. It's not something that's separate. It's not an entity that's separate, but it's individuated, meaning it has characteristics that are unique to that being. And I don't know how deeply you've gotten into A Course of Love, but it's sort of like, I say it's further down the path, because it really drills into some of these things that we've taken for granted, and says, well, here's what it really means.
Mm.
You know? So it's just interesting, the synergy between those two, the original edition and A Course of Love.
Yeah, actually, what happened when you were speaking there, it got quite emotional, actually, because for me, it brings it so much into being real, because where if I take the soul or the individualized representation of love, if I take that out of the picture, I've got this ego body in this world of confusion, but the individualized being that is my true self isn't in the picture anymore, and to take it out or not be clear about what the significance of that is such a massive and so I think the emotion came up with things like, well, my study of A Course in Miracles for 18 years, I kind of missed it. I really missed the idea that an individuated soul being is what's talked about in A Course in Miracles. I didn't get that.
And the book, A Course in Miracles, is about who we are. I mean, really, it really is addressing who are you. Well, it talks about our one self. It talks about our Christ. Our one self, our real self is the Christ in us, but it doesn't really tell us what all that means. I mean, I've been very confused about that until I found A Course of Love. And that brought it into focus. So further down the path, I guess you'd say.
Yeah, I think the Course of Love, as you say, amplifies that or brings that into some focus and clarity about our true self.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's see. What's coming up for you as to what else we need to go
what's coming up for me is the format of the original edition. And Helen wrote in iambic pentameter. A huge part of the course is miraculously in iambic pentameter, and that's a cadence. It's and it's you break that cadence up if you move things around. I'd have to say. So in some places that occurred, but also people have told us that there is this. They get a feeling that there was something missing, and they didn't know what it was, and they couldn't put their finger on it. And I think you might have alluded to that. But in reading the original, there's a personableness. There's a unity. There's, of course, relationship. There seems to be parts there that now it's smooth. It works for them. It works in a very personal way and not truncated and not intellectual. That's what I think I mean to say. Not necessarily intellectual, but in a feeling way, in a spiritual way. And that's beautiful. And I would love to hear that. People email us and say, oh, this is so beautiful, and it has opened my heart so beautifully. So heart-centeredness. No wonder we resonate with A Course of Love.
Yeah, we were dialoguing about A Course in Miracles and A Course in Love yesterday, actually, and someone was saying that A Course in Miracles is really about opening your heart as well. So it's not like we're going to keep opening your heart up until it gets to A Course of Love, but A Course in Miracles is about touching and opening your heart. And I thought that was a beautiful thing to say about the Course in Miracles, and maybe something that the original edition helps us with.
Yeah, I don't think it's possible. I don't think A Course of Love is possible without having been preceded by A Course in Miracles. I think the Course in Miracles laid the groundwork for it, and it kind of presupposes, as you study A Course of Love, it kind of presupposes that you've already been through the work of A Course in Miracles.
Yeah. So go ahead. The course, so to get back to this conference, is called Awakening to Love. And Awakening to Love is, I guess, awakening is very much a part of A Course in Miracles. And is there anything about awakening to love that you'd like to say that touches you? Or maybe you don't actually use those words so much about awakening from a dream.
I think awakening is a process that starts when you pick up the book. And for me, it certainly hasn't ended. I haven't gotten to the place where I can say, okay, I'm awake now. That hasn't happened. But it kind of shows you where this path is leading. Really, as soon as you pick up the book and stop struggling with, the Christian terminology and that was the first. When I first picked up the book, I can still see myself sitting in my den with this book, arduously reading through Principles of Miracles. It's like, what is atonement? I had a Catholic upbringing, so we had a knowledge of what atonement was in that milieu, but the way the Course was using the word was different. And I'm fighting with this. I'm going, well, this doesn't fit, and I'm trying to intellectualize my way through it. Finally, when I stopped that, it became easier. When I just said, let it in, just let it in, and it will speak for itself. And that was sort of a milestone for me, I guess you'd say, is once I crossed that path, then it became very easy. And just to let it in and let it wash over me. And as that happened, my attitudes began to change. And this, I'm struggling with the text. I hadn't gotten to the lessons yet. This is the text. So when people ask me now, where should I start? I point to the early lessons, and I point to the teacher's manual. And I kind of am holding back on the text because it's just challenging a lot of preconceptions that, it's 180 degrees different than the spirituality that you grew up with. So, maybe after you learn that nothing I see means anything, you can begin to read that with an open mind. But it's not easy, I think, for the new student to just pick up and dive into the text of the Course.
Because as you say, they approach it in the same way as they do studying anything. It's with the intellectual mind, they're trying to work it out. But you're saying something about, opening your mind and relaxing or letting it in, taking it in a different way.
Yeah, exactly. We judge everything according to our past experiences and what we think we know. And that's true out there in the world, and it's also true with whatever material we're studying. I've read all the prerequisites, I guess you'd say. I've studied Buddhism, I've studied Taoism, and who hasn't, in this spiritual community. We've all looked at all those things, all those paths, and start with Christianity, and then something's not there, or there's something missing, so we go on and we see what these other spiritual traditions have to offer, and that opens a person if you've done that. If you haven't done that and you go right from your Baptist congregation to A Course in Miracles, you're going to have a struggle. It's not going to resonate right away.
Yeah, I mean, and to some extent, that's what I did. I grew up very much in a Protestant tradition. I was a Sunday school teacher. I was very much into, from an early age, into studying the Bible. But then when I left that, there was a interval where I wasn't doing anything. But then I came across A Course in Miracles. And what was quite funny for me is that, I used to be a really keen student of Kenneth Wapnick's, and I still, hold Kenneth very dear in my thoughts, and I love what he teaches in some ways. But what he was teaching at one point was, for me, the Course in Miracles is unique. So really don't mix it up with anything else. So don't study anything else when you're studying A Course in Miracles, because you'll get confused about what A Course in Miracles is really trying to tell you in a unique way. And I think for me that was helpful until 18 years later. I opened up to A Course of Love and other things. So I was kind of, I did it in a different way, and then maybe there's an easier way of doing it. But what would you say to that? So A Course in Miracles is unique, and so studying it is different from anything else, really. Is that something that you would like to comment on?
I don't think that's true. I think we were talking at our group last Sunday about the sentence, "I need do nothing," or "You need do nothing." It's a proclamation in the Course. What does that mean? Well, right away, I got the Taoist interpretation of that, which would be the master does nothing, but nothing is left undone. That's a Taoist principle.
Mm-hmm.
Don't interfere, but that doesn't mean you don't have a job. It doesn't mean that there aren't activities to undertake. It means to follow the path, follow the Tao. And in Course terminology, that would be let Spirit guide you, and keep your damn ego out of it. So that's, I say that kind of bringing that background into A Course in Miracles is very helpful, because I need do nothing. That sentence by itself means, okay, I'm going to sit at home and not do anything. I mean, there's a big difference that understanding those other traditions is helpful in filling in the blanks.
And also what happened with me is, after studying the Course, I had studied previously for a long time, a lot of Seth, and I did the S training, and I started to do yoga, and then I found the Course and studied the Course. But what I found was that the Course helped me in looking at all other. I could go to Catholic Mass with my father and see in the Mass something that I don't think I've ever seen before, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. I could pick up books, and it was because of the Course that I could see something that wasn't there. I think what the Course did for me, and I think the purpose, and one of the key purposes, is to remove the blocks to love's awareness. And love's awareness is everywhere. It's in all religions. It's everywhere. It's within us. And it's like, it's the key to the whole Course. Awakening to love, how beautiful. Because he said, love created, one of the lessons, love created me like itself. God is love, and therefore so am I. Love is who we are. We're awakening to who we are. The essence of who we are is love. And the Course helps us to do that in A Course of Love. And all of these disciplines, I believe it's, I studied yoga with Swami Satchidananda, and his motto was, truth is one, paths are many. And that was so beautiful, so ecumenical, that whatever path, it doesn't matter. Truth is one.
Yeah. But I mean, some people would go, well, it's one of thousands of paths. So why would you mix paths? I mean, you found your path, which is A Course in Miracles. And so why would you not be saying that can be, I'm not saying special, but certainly your path, and recognize it? And
that's a good point. The Hindus say, don't dig a million shallow wells. You're not
Okay.
going to have water, right? You just need one well deeply. And that's so true. So for me, the Course in Miracles is my well, and it's my wellspring. But I come to other things like A Course of Love, like whatever, all these other disciplines, and they feed me, yes. But the well that I have, the wellspring, is for me A Course in Miracles. So it's yes, it's like Christina Strutt said in her article. She has an article in Miracles Magazine, and she said it's not or, it's and. So it's the dig the deep well and reach out and see where the truth is in other places as well.
I love that description of the flow, as you say. It's there's some sort of flow happening there, but the well could be for students of A Course in Miracles that are attracted to that. That's their well, and yet it doesn't have to be exclusive. I guess that's maybe where I got into the well, but it has to be exclusive of everything else, and somehow that wasn't helpful. It was helpful maybe to dig the well, but somehow there is a flow as well.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And you'll be guided to what will nurture you.
That's a beautiful point. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And also it'll help you to connect with other people. Say I'm talking to someone and they're not studying the Course, they're maybe a different discipline, but I can relate to them, so it's, if I think, oh, they're not doing the Course, they're not going to understand the principles, I'm not even going to mention it. No, I don't even have to mention the Course, but I can use the principles of the Course to unite with them, even if they don't know what the Course is or haven't done it, because it is a universal Course.
Yeah, and maybe it was something to do with my understanding of Course, this idea that the world is unreal and we're not really here. I mean, that may not come across in quite the same way in the original edition, but in some editions maybe not so much the edition, but the teachers of A Course in Miracles often emphasize the world being unreal. And then it doesn't sometimes resonate with a lot of other traditions that, you can disconnect yourself very quickly when you go, well, the world's unreal, and so why are you getting upset about that? Or, when someone's talking about their appreciation of God in that plant or God in whatever, and you're going, well, God's not in that plant, or, So I can see somehow I use maybe the Course, my understanding, which was probably limited, of A Course in Miracles to disconnect me from other people and from nature.
So what I would say to that is that what is the illusion, what is the dream, is the idea of everything is separate. And the truth is, nothing is separate. There's only one thing going on. And we say, Joy says often, us within it and it within us. And again, I'm going back to A Course of Love. In the dialogues, it makes very clear that these individuated beings, God being one of them, an individuated being, are united in relationship. And it's if you're seeing these bodies walking around as individual, okay, but also see them as Christ, because that's what's real, that's what's true. And that's what I say. I'm not there yet. I know where I'm going. I encounter people who I just can't see the Christ in them, but more and more I do see the Christ in, the people at the Walmart or, wherever I am, people at church, of course, but I mean, just people out at large. Yeah, I see that we are truly one. And so you ask, how is the world unreal? The world's unreal because of the gloss that we put on it. We're seeing through a lens darkly, as St. Paul said in the epistles, and when we're awake, we'll see, that lens will be removed, we'll see clearly. And what we'll see is all those people that you're so upset with in traffic are just you, you know. So
I think it's a huge, what is it, dichotomy? I mean, we're in a dualistic world, you know, dualism, and that's really going to put a crimp in experiencing unity. And I heard recently that there's a unity underneath the dichotomy, and that was so beautiful. So it's both, and there we go again, the end. There's the yin yang, there's the unity. Yes, it appears separate, but there's a unity too that unites everything. And it's so hard for us to see that because we're stuck in time, you know, continual time, and we're stuck in the seeming 3D of opposites. And so it's so hard to think of unity. And so in a sense, illusion is, if these opposites, if separation, like Tom was talking about separation, he said your only problem is separation, and it's not real, you know, it's not there. So, but that's a problem when you're in the dualistic world, because separation defines where we think we are. It's a huge deal. But I think that you can have end. I feel a unity within the duality. And so it's, part of the course where he says, there is nowhere God is not. That is so amazing, and that helps me so much, because if I hear that I'm not here, no, there's nowhere else to be. That's perpetuating the separation. There's nowhere else to be, you know. And he says, heaven is here. There's no other place. Heaven is now. There's no other time. So this is it. And I'm either going to see it darkly, or I'm going to see it with vision. And he's wanting us, I feel so, elder brother, in bringing this course to us and bringing Course of Love, is wanting us to see with the eyes of Christ, to see what is there with the eyes of Christ, and we will break through the separation and the illusion, you know, with light. But there's nowhere else. It's right here and now. Oh.
So to get back to your original question, when I hear there is no world, well, there's not a world as you're envisioning it, or I'm envisioning it. That's not real. It's not what's happening, but something's going on that I'm perceiving through my senses. And you can say, well, it's all mental. Yes, it's all mental. It is all mental. But these folks who have had these cosmic experiences of being God consciousness, and they see from a universal point of view, that's where we're going. I mean, these are the early arrivers, I guess I'd say, at the place where we're all headed. These mystical experiences where they experience the being one with all the universe, being one with the stars, being one with the chair I'm sitting in. That experience is, there's a word for it, ineffable. You can't really explain it. If you've experienced it, you know, the folks who have experienced it haven't been able to hold on to it, but they remember it.
And Tom's being humble. He's had an experience of cosmic consciousness, and it is affable. He can't explain it. He's being actually experienced it.
And I don't feel like I'm special in that. You know, many people have had experiences like that, and they don't talk about it because it sounds crazy. And in fact, that was my end reaction to it, was I've just lost my mind. You know, because everything was so different than how I had been perceiving it before. Now I can't go back there. You know, I wish I could just, you know, click my ruby slippers and go back to that spot, because I think I'm better prepared for it now than I was when it actually happened.
Mm.
You know, I wouldn't be as fearful of it. It's not so bad losing your mind.
Yeah, that's a beautiful description, as you say, of that cosmic consciousness. But I'm going to be a little bit awkward with a difficult question, or a question that I heard myself say to some speakers in the past, and I hear some students now. You can almost kind of hear it when I'm going to say it. It's like, okay, so you can be one with the chair and the stars and everything else, but even so, what if that form is seen as unreal? You know, what you're describing doesn't make sense, say, for, you know, I don't know what some people have, if they have a take that everything that's in form is unreal, and you say, well, you sense a oneness with the stars and the universe, you know, that in one way doesn't make sense if you define form as unreal and spirit is not in form, which is what some students of A Course in Miracles are very clear about, and clear about that differentiates A Course in Miracles from a lot of other spiritual paths.
I'm not sure that it's different from Hinduism in that regard.
Mm-hmm.
But our experience is that form is around us. You know, we have different
Mm-hmm.
objects around us. The table in front of me, for example, it's not really what it appears to be. It's mostly empty space. It's a sort of a concrete form of energy, and the only reason it's concrete is because everything's moving so fast. Just like your video
Mm-hmm.
is just a series of static frames, but they're moving so fast they appear as one. So if you get into quantum physics, you see that there really isn't anything there except what your mind brings to it. Your perception of your awareness of the energy is what makes it concrete, brings it to form. So you can say, well, okay, there is no world until there's an observer.
Mm-hmm.
All right, you know, that's okay. We can have these kind of discussions, but I think it puts people off when you hit them with that idea that it's all an illusion, it's a dream, it's not even real, so it doesn't matter what's happening because it's just a dream. And you know what? It does matter what's happening, because these are my brothers and sisters that it's happening to.
Mm-hmm.
And while it may not be real, the pain is real.
Mm-hmm.
Suffering is real. So you can say that car that ran over that person is just a dream, but the impact on the person is significant, and it's and that's what we're here to experience. Is we wouldn't have come here if we didn't want to experience form and how form relates to our spirit. So,
And the other idea that we often play around with in our course group on Sunday is that there's only one thing going on, right? The thing is, there's only one thing going on, mind, you within it and it within you. And with that mind, we have free will, and we can misperceive. But see, we're only using one thing, the mind. There's not the mind and then something else that's an illusion or something. No, the mind, this beautiful mind, is choosing illusion. And we will, as long as we want to choose illusion, we will, until we stop and awaken. So who's choosing illusion? The only thing is mind.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's only one. And it's just using that same energy. That's why to fight it or to hate it, to learn from it, is like Tom said, you know, we came to, you know, why did I come here? Is to learn through this challenge, a huge challenge. But I take responsibility. I take responsibility for everything I see, everything that happens to me, comes to me. I have asked. And that's good news and bad news.
Mm.
News is, yeah, that I can ask to see it differently. And look at the lessons, the first lessons. Nothing I see means anything. I give everything all the meaning. Who gives it? The Son of God. The Son of God either gives it illusion, either misperceives it, or the Son of God sees it correctly. There's no other being.
Mm.
You know, even ego is the Son of God misperceiving. That feels so good for me because that doesn't break it up. You know, there's not the ego and me. There's just me sleeping.
So
Mm-hmm.
I was just going to add a thought to that. When I was very young, I was into the philosophers, you know, Immanuel Kant and Descartes and all that. I think, therefore I am, you know, that kind of rationale. And during that time when I was studying those things, I had the thought that I don't know anything. All you know, what my perceptions are come from my five senses, but it's all happening mentally. It's all, you know, I understand things in my mind. I feel things in my mind. I don't really know if I've got hands at the end of my arms. I don't know if I even have arms because I'm just creating all that in my mind and experiencing it in my mind. And so I can say, well, it's easy to say I'm dreaming that, or it's an illusion, but then maybe it's not because I do have my five senses and I see and touch and so on with those senses. And maybe there is something out there, or maybe there's not, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I think what you're both saying there is really helpful. I love the words, which I haven't really heard it before, and it sounds like you teach it a lot, is that there's only one thing going on. And when you said that first, Tom, and Reja, that's really, really wonderful. And you know, and just to bring it down to a practical example, you know, so I've got a friend who's got cancer and they're really sick and they're a Course in Miracles student and they're beating themselves up that they created this cancer in their body and they're suffering and in their pain. So to, you know, just apply what you're saying to like that sort of concrete example there, you know what, there's only one thing going on. And, you know, what would you say then to somebody who's is a Course in Miracles student but has cancer?
You know, Anita Morjani, as an example, I think a lot of people know about Anita Morjani, and if they don't, they could look her up. She had stage 4 cancer. She fought her cancer for 4 years, and she was deathly afraid of getting cancer. And she had friends die of cancer, and she saw how awful it was. And then she got cancer and suffered. And then it wasn't until she actually got to the end of her life, all her organs closed down, and she was on the verge of passing, where she had a near-death experience, and she awakened to love. She experienced who she really was, and she saw that she brought her cancer on. It's okay, you know, by her feeling of unworthiness. She didn't realize how magnificent she is. Her goal now, she says, is to let us know how magnificent we are, you know. And then someone asked her, and then, by the way, she healed. She knew that she would heal. She knew she didn't have a need for cancer anymore. She didn't need to die. But the thing is, she could have gone, it doesn't matter. We make this the end all and be all. That's our journey, yes, is here. Our journey is never ending. It's eternal. So we think it's only here. No, we have a journey in either place. So it didn't matter whether she went on or stayed. But what she realized is that she stayed, she could bring that message that we are magnificent and that we are worthy and to love yourself. So someone asked her, well, what happens if the cancer comes back? And she, you know what she said? She said, well, I will know then how I decided to leave this plane and go on to my journey, put full responsibility for it. So I just need to say, and it's different for every person, but if I were, well, we'll see, but if I were to I always think about this. If I were to contract a life-threatening disease, you know, I would hope that I would say, this is how my soul, this is how I chose to leave this 3D. It's okay. I want my family to be okay, because there is no, I truly believe there's no death. I'm just gonna go on my journey in a different way. And I will have hoped to have done what I came here to do. And if not, maybe I'll have another opportunity. I don't know, but that's.
So our culture is so, clings so tightly to these bodies. You know, and especially, I don't know, you're in Ireland. In the United States, people will do anything, spend any amount of money to harvest a few more days of what we call life. And it's so pointless. You know, stay long enough to say goodbye, but let go. I mean, if it's time, it's time, and it's going to be time for all of us. I had a favorite minister said, it's like we have all fallen out of the airplane and we're heading toward the ground at different speeds. That's a little dramatic, but you know, it is kind of like that. We all have the same conclusion, and you know, let's just not hang on so tight.
Yeah. I think the thing that causes the suffering, and which you kind of got to there a little bit, is, you know, it's almost like it was a mistaken choice to have cancer in your body, or the being that's making the choice is kind of like an ego unworthy, as what you put, you know, an unworthy being is doing and in charge. But it's a beautiful shift to go, okay, you know, it's my Christ self, it's my a true self, it's who I am, is my God self, if you want to put it for some people, that made that choice, and it's just a perfect choice, and then there's no guilt involved in having cancer. It's just, as you say, a simple choice of, this is the way I'm going to transition.
Look at Ramana Maharshi died of cancer. You know, a great saint. You know? And Tom Vieira, I don't know if you knew Tom. He was in an early newsletter of ours, and he is a course student, and he contracted cancer, and he was so at peace with it. I mean, it was like he didn't do any chemotherapy, didn't do any, you know, treatment. He just realized it was he took total responsibility and said, that's the way he's going to go, you know. And yeah, and he was just at peace during and then he has Nook Sanchez was his was with him at the time, and she has heard from him after he had passed. And
yes, of course, I know that story.
Yeah.
But so if there's any guilt about the choice, so if the person is really aware as a Course in Miracles student, you know, I've chosen this cancer, but that means, and then they make a conclusion, that means I'm a terrible, unworthy person. I'm basically an ego person living in this world, choosing cancer and pain. Well,
I think the perspective I would take is everything's perfect just the way it is. Nothing need be changed. Everything's perfect just the way it is. And how this came upon me, I don't know. Why it came upon me, I don't know. But it's what's happening, and what's happening is perfect. You know.
And also the past. No matter what happened in the past, this is a new now. The past can hurt me not. You know, it doesn't exist. So right now, in this moment, I can release my feelings of guilt and unworthiness. I can open to love, open to who I truly am, and open to guidance. And in fact, that's all we can do. All of us can do in any moment, you know, whether we have cancer or not, you know, is to open to that innocence. And
I had actually a beautiful experience talking to this friend of mine who's in this state as a Course in Miracles student. And when I was talking to him for a couple of hours, I was connecting with his true self, and there's just so much beauty and light there. And he was spending like about an hour or so talking about how miserable things were. And I said, you know, afterwards, my only experience of you was not anything painful or unworthy or anything being wrong. It was just everything, as you say, Tom, you know, being perfect, or just connecting with his true essence. And I guess by connecting with that, I was kind of going, okay, well, join me here, because there's another perception of this whole thing. And
Yeah.
Nice. That's nice.
Mm. Yeah. So I love the way the dialogue takes a kind of twist, and I'm not sure how it does that, and we're having a relationship. And I love that as fun for going with that. But is there anything, starting off, that maybe this is the title of this is, what is a course, the original edition, or why the original edition, or what does it bring? Is there anything you'd like to, coming back round to the original edition, is there anything you'd like to say, as we're coming towards the end of this discussion?
I mentioned earlier that a person will be drawn to the path that will nurture them. Mm-hmm. And I feel that way about the various sub-paths within A Course in Miracles. I started with the Blue Book. I have Robert Perry's book, and I have our book. And I, of course, as I said, I studied the Blue Book for years. Robert's book, as soon as it was available, I got it, and I started using it in my daily practice. And I set it aside because I was drawn back to our book. It's not that there's anything wrong with it. In fact, there's a lot there. There's a lot there that's very beneficial and useful. But for my daily practice, I'm drawn to our book. And maybe that's just because of the comfort of having been through it a dozen times or more. It's very familiar and comfortable. So I say, there are different editions. There's the Urtext. People who really want to go back nearer to where it started can look at the Urtext. Robert took the Urtext and kind of refined it and dressed it up a bit, but it's still basically the Urtext. And then if you really want to get into it, go back to the notes, and you'll see more. Yeah. All that stuff is available, and it's great. And I just say that a student will be drawn to the document that is best for them.
Yeah, and as you say, what I think is really helpful there is to maybe ask for help. So if there's some confusion for a student, which edition or what shall I read, is just to ask for their own inner guidance as to which one.
Exactly.
Exactly. Because we got an email from a gentleman from Australia, and he got a hold of the course last year, and he said, "How do I understand this?" It was really good. And there's a part in the course where it says, "No one can explain the course to you." And this is the quote that I get sent to him. "No one can explain the course to you. It's an experience." But what Elder Brother and what the course gives us is the conditions for the experience. But the experience has to be of us. So, you test out. Now, perhaps after seeing this, some people know more about the original edition, and they may say, "Oh, I never knew that it existed. Let me try it out." And they read it and it resonates. Or they read it and they say, it doesn't. And so what's wonderful about our original edition is that it's just another option. There's so many out there, like the Urtext, like you said, like the notes, like now the complete edition by Robert Perry and the Foundation for Inner Peace. So really it's what your soul resonates with, because it's your experience. No one can explain the course. You've got to have that experience and what's going to work for you. So we're just happy to have that as an option, as one among many. There's the sparkly too.
Yeah.
So there's a sparkly edition. So basically, so I think we've given perhaps some people an idea of the original edition, what it is. It's an early manuscript before further editing. Some of the things were still in there that were taken out later, that kind of thing. Has a more personal feel, and giving people an idea that maybe they want to look into it and see for themselves. But it's an experience. So,
so we're very ecumenical. Our Sunday group, if you look around it, we have all three of the main books represented there.
Yeah, no, I love your your openness to that and non-judgmentalness about the other editions, and that feels, you know, it feels really genuine, and it feels like, just like, as you say, an invitation for people to tune in and connect with what works for them.
Exactly. Yeah.
And to have an experience. Yeah, what an invitation. Beautiful. So thank you for joining me in this this interview and this dialogue. I've enjoyed the flow of it, and you know, I've learned something myself, and yeah, it's really touched me, and I thank you so much for your willingness to be part of the conference.
Thank you for having
so
us.
much.
It's been equally a delightful experience for me. And
me too. Thank you so much. You're wonderful.
Thank you. So thank you, Tom and Reja, and there's going to be other information for people to find out more about what you're doing, and so they can see that on your speakers page. And thank you so much.
Thank you.
Namaste.
Okay, bye for now.
Bye.
Okay.